friends, good evening. Welcome to Mission Possible by BK. This is Bharat, a chartered accountant by profession, and we are covering LRAB, and we have already covered three chapters, and this is unit number 4, and this relates to returns, inspection, winding up, mergers, and acquisition. This is fairly an easy topic. Much of the information is related to your timelines and deadlines and the formalities which the banking company has to comply with. So we will get started quickly and try to complete this video in a shorter frame of time. So annual accounts and balance sheet. So all the banks which are listed with stock exchanges have the necessity to publish their unaudited quarterly results in accordance with SEBI's pro forma. So if you see, if some of you who might be dealing with share market, you know that each and every quarter, every company generally publishes their quarterly results. So same is the case with banking company also. They have to publish their unaudited. Why unaudited? Because audit is generally done only for 1 year period of time. They can't do audit each and every quarter. That's why it is said as unaudited, but it is reviewed by the auditors, but it will not be audited. So it will be reviewed by the auditors but not audited. So that is the criteria here. So all the unaudited quarterly results are published by all the banks who are listed with stock exchanges. So that is the condition here. For those who are not listed with stock exchanges, they need not submit any information to SEBI. And according to section 29 of the Banking Regulation Act, so the banking firm must prepare a balance sheet and profit and loss statement. So this section 29 relates to your preparation of banking accounts, balance sheet and profit and loss, whereas the other part deals with stock exchange submissions. So the balance sheet and profit and loss account of a banking company incorporated in India has to be signed by the manager or principal officer. So this is one important thing which you need to remember. And also by the directors. If there are more than 3 directors, then at least 3 directors should sign, and if there are less than 3 directors, then all the directors should sign the balance sheet and profit and loss account. And in case of foreign banks, that means the companies which are incorporated outside but have a banking establishment in India, the manager or the agent of its principal office in India can sign the balance sheet and profit and loss account. So in case of banking firms, the profit and loss account that must be presented to the annual general meeting should cover the period ending on the last working day of the year preceding the year of the annual general meeting. So general meeting, for example, general meeting is conducted in 2020, now July, assume June, then the period of the profit and loss account and balance sheet should be, in case of, sorry, this is 2021, then it should be 2020 to 2021 March. It should be the 1 year general frame of time, because annual general meeting is conducted after the completion of accounts. So here they have mentioned that the preceding financial year should be taken into consideration for your balance sheet and profit and loss time frame. The provisions of section 210 of the Companies Act in this behalf have also said the same thing, but they are inapplicable to banking company, because in case of 210 they say that it should be a financial year, but in case of banking companies it should be the last 1 year or the last working year of the preceding year, the general annual general meeting. So that is the condition. It's fairly one and the same, but the provisions of section 210 of the Companies Act have been specifically made inapplicable to banking company here in this regard. It is because in case of section 210, there are some general provisions which are applicable to the companies in case of extension. That means if a company is established for the first time, then the period of account shall be the date of incorporation to the date of the financial year ending, or sometimes the companies have the flexibility to adopt even a higher year period of time, provided the companies or the MCA approves it. So such a provisions are generally applicable to the companies but not applicable to the banking companies. So that is what this section has been made inapplicable to the banking companies. Not much relevant to you in terms of exam point of view, but as of now you can just remember that the profit and loss account must be presented which covers the period ending on the last working day of the preceding year of the annual general meeting. So the publication, the account and the balance sheet which are reported under section 29 of the Banking Regulation Act along with the auditor's report have to be published, and the timeline given here is 6 months timeline. Within 6 months timeline they have to publish in the newspaper. So that is the condition here. So this provision is related to publication, so don't get confused with submission to RBI. That again is a different clause. So for the publication of accounts and balance sheet, the time frame is 6 months timeline from the end of the year. That means if your year ending is ending on March 31st, then within 6 months they have to publish it in the local newspaper, and that's the condition here. So the next is furnishing of accounts and balance sheet to register. Actually, Section 220 of the Companies Act 1956, which actually dealt with the normal regulations of companies, it says that the companies have to submit their entire set of financial statements to the register of companies. However, in case of banking companies, Section 32 of your Banking Regulation Act says that the banking company have to submit to the register 3 copies of the account, balance sheet, auditor's report, and also it has to be submitted to RBI as per Section 31 of the Act. So here not only register, it has also to be submitted to the Reserve Bank of India. So that is the provision here. Whereas for normal companies, Reserve Bank of India submission is not necessary. For example, for a manufacturing concern or a finance company, submission to RBI is not necessary. The only formality as per Section 220 is that they have to submit it to MCA. But in case of banking companies, in addition to being submitting the documents to the register of companies, they also have to submit the documents to the Reserve Bank of India. So that is the condition here. Next, coming to audit and auditors. According to Section 30 of the Banking Regulation Act, a banking company's balance sheet and profit and loss account both must be audited. So Section 30 of the Banking Regulation Act deals with the provision related to audit and audited accounts. Powers and functions of auditors. The powers, functions and duties of the auditors are same, which are specified in the Companies Act. There are no changes in it because the powers of the auditor are generally specified in the Companies Act. Earlier it was Section 227 of the Companies Act. Now it has been replaced by Companies Act 2013. So the auditors have the powers to do any verification or any checking, and this not only applies to normal companies, even to the banking companies the regulations are same. They enjoy the same power which they enjoy with other companies. Special audit. Now special audit, Reserve Bank of India under Section 31B of the Banking Company Regulation Act has the power to order a special audit of the accounts of the company. So special audit, why it is generally done? Because the Reserve Bank feels that it is necessary in the public interest to do so, because it finds that some of the aspects of the banking operations are not in order with the Reserve Bank of India Act or the Banking Regulation of India Act, and hence that is the reason sometimes RBI has the power to issue a special audit. So in case of a special audit, the auditor has to submit the special audit report to the RBI and also forward a copy to the banking company. So all the expenses related to the special audit are borne by the banking company. For example, if RBI orders a special audit to PNB, then PNB has to bear the audit expenses, and also the auditor has to submit a audit report to both RBI as well as the particular bank for which the special audit has been ordered by the RBI. So this is the condition of special audit. Next is submission of returns. So here submission of returns means what are the returns which the banking company should submit at regular intervals. So the first one is your return of liquid assets or liquid assets return. Under Section 24(3) of your Banking Regulation Act, every banking company is required to provide a return of its liquid assets. The return must be submitted within 20 days. So this is important here. It must be submitted within 20 days from the end of the month it pertains to, and the return has to be as per the form which is prescribed under the Banking Regulation Companies Rules 1949, and the rule here is 13A. So this what is the most important thing is this submission within 20 days. So that is the most important thing, and it may come as your MCQ question most of the times. And then there is a monthly return. So monthly return here, last Friday of previous month. So on last Friday of your previous month under Section 27 of the BR Act, the monthly return has to be filed, and every banking company has to submit a return to the RBI which generally shows its assets and liabilities in India and also the other details which are required by the RBI in the prescribed format which is specified by the RBI. So on the last Friday of every month is important here, and also it is a general summary of the assets and liabilities. So return of assets in India, Section 25 subsection 1 of the Banking Regulation Act. This is with return of assets in India. And then return of unclaimed deposit under Section 26 of the Banking Regulation Act, a banking company has to file within 30 days. So 30 days is important here. 30 days from the close of each calendar year. This also is important. The close of each calendar year means generally 1 year period of time. A return on unclaimed deposits. Unclaimed deposits means nothing but those deposits which have been not operated for more than 10 years period of time. So those are generally classified as unclaimed deposits. So at the end of each calendar year, within 30 days, the bankers have to submit this return of unclaimed deposits. And also apart from this, there is something called as your accounts and balance sheet. The banking company has to submit your return of your balance sheet and account to RBI, and the time prescribed for this is generally 3 months. Okay, there is one which is called as publishing, which we have learned in the earlier few slides. For publishing, the time given is 6 months, whereas for submission to RBI, the time given is 3 months. So don't get confused between both of this. Next is your return of cash reserve of non-scheduled banks. Every banking company which is not being a scheduled bank has to submit a return to the RBI under section 18 of the Banking Regulation Act, and which relates to your cash reserves. Apart from this, even the scheduled banks are required to report their demand and time liabilities to the Reserve Bank under section 42 of the RBI Act as provided in subsection 2. Okay. So return of assets, what we learned here is just a normal return which actually tells that every banking company has to submit a quarterly return. This is generally in quarterly format. Okay, this I will just write it here. It is a quarterly return and it is submitted to the Reserve Bank. It shows the total of its asset in India, and the timeline given here is such return should be submitted within 1 month from the end of the quarter or 30 days from the end of the quarter. Okay, so this is the condition here for submission of return of assets in India. Next, coming to inspection and scrutiny. The Reserve Bank is actually empowered under section 35 of the Banking Regulation Act to conduct an inspection of any banking company. Earlier what we saw was special audit. So now this is called as inspection. So inspection is nothing but something which is done when the bankers do some fraud kind of thing, or when the RBI feels that the affairs of the banking company are not managed in the better interest of the public, or it is against the banking rules and regulations. So in such a case, the inspection and scrutiny can be ordered. So what happens here? A copy of the report of the inspection has to be sent to the central government in all the cases. So once the inspection is done, this is important friends, the copy has to be sent to the central government, and if the central government think that the affairs of the banking company are not in the interest of the depositors, then what it can do, it can prohibit the banking company from receiving any fresh deposits. So this is very important. If the central government feels that after seeing the report that the banking company is not in good shape, it can prohibit the banking company from accepting further deposits, and also direct the Reserve Bank to apply for winding up of the company. Both of these are very, very good powers which the central government has in order to ensure that the affairs of the banking company are controlled properly. Okay, a copy of the inspection report has to be sent to the central government. So that is the most important thing, because sometimes in MCQs they will ask you whether the copy of the report has to be sent to central government or to the RBI or to the banking company. So you must remember that under inspection and scrutiny, the report has to be sent to the central government, whereas in your audit and inspection, what happens is that the report is generally sent to the RBI, and also it is sent to the banking company also, because the banker needs to know what is the results of the audit so that they can address it. Whereas in case of inspection and scrutiny, the central government will monitor what is the result of that inspection and what it needs to do in order to ensure that the banking affairs are regulated properly. So apart from the regular inspection, the Reserve Bank is also empowered to undertake a scrutiny. Scrutiny is like a sudden checking or a suspicious checking. Sometimes when it feels that the returns are not being submitted by the bankers properly, they can do a scrutiny in order to ensure that the company is maintaining the required level of assets and liabilities, or it is following the required amount of cash reserve ratio or SLR compared to its time and demand liabilities. So it can do a scrutiny in respect of any of the banking affairs, and this power is mentioned under section 35 subsection 1A of your Banking Regulation Act. Next, coming to your Board of Financial Supervision, it was actually constituted first time in November 1994 under section 58 of your RBI Act, and also regulation 4 of your RBI regulations have the power to enhance this Board of Financial Supervision Committee. Okay, so the Board of Financial Supervision was first constituted in November 1994, and it's generally a committee which composes mainly of one governor of RBI, who is actually the chairman, and second, there is a deputy governor of RBI, and apart from the governor and deputy governor, there are 4 other directors from the RBI who are nominated by the governor as members. So totally there are 6 members. So one governor, one deputy governor, and 4 other members of the RBI who are nominated by the governor. So they are the members of this Board of Financial Supervision. So what is this Board of Financial Supervision? So this Board of Financial Supervision actually exercises the power of supervision and inspection under RBI Act as well as the Banking Regulation Act in relation to different sectors like financial system or including banking companies. They have a wide range of powers, and the broad category of their powers are listed out here. So this is the broad category of powers: restructuring of the system of banking inspections, introduction of off-site surveillance, strengthening the role of statutory auditors, strengthening the internal defenses of supervised institutions. So these are general powers of the Board of Financial Supervision. So what is most important here is the number of members in your Board of Supervision, which is generally 6. So that is what is important, and this board generally meets once in a month in order to discuss these 4 topics: And the board may also form a subcommittee which is called as the executive committee, and the governor may constitute an advisory council also in order to give advice to the committee. So the board has wide powers. It is not just restricted, just because there are only 6 members doesn't mean that only those 6 members will do all the work. They can always constitute a subcommittee which is called as the executive committee, and also the board can constitute an advisory council. So all these powers are given to this board of financial supervision, and they generally take measures to improve the overall banking system as well as the banking regulations, and also the auditor's powers in regards to the audit of the banking company. So that is generally the role of your board of financial supervision. Okay, so the next comes to amalgamation of banks. Amalgamation is nothing but merging of one or two companies. A banking company can be amalgamated with another banking company, and this is mentioned under section 44 of the Banking Regulation Act. Amalgamation by the government. Even the central government is empowered to order amalgamation of two banking companies under section 396 of your Companies Act. However, such power can be exercised only after consultation with the Reserve Bank. Just because the government has power, it cannot straight away exercise it. It has to consult the RBI before exercising such power, because RBI is the supreme authority for banking regulation. So any action by the central government has to be intimated to your RBI. Moratorium on amalgamation, section 45 of the Banking Regulation Act gives powers to the banking companies asking for moratorium. So the Reserve Bank has the authority to apply to the central government for moratorium order in respect of any banking company where it appears to be that there is reasonable grounds to do so. So the RBI can write to the central government to give moratorium. Moratorium means an extension or delay in complying with the rules or regulations, and this can be granted by the central government if the grounds are genuine. So that is related to your amalgamation of banks. Next, coming to winding up of banks. Suspension of banking and winding up. A banking company which is temporarily unable to meet its obligation can apply to the High Court under section 37 of your Banking Regulation Act for staying the commencement or continuance of proceedings against it. So this is related to your winding up, which whenever a banking company feels that it is temporarily unable to meet its obligation, it can apply to the High Court. Winding up by the High Court. The High Court can order the winding up of a banking company in the circumstances mentioned in section 38 of the Banking Regulation Act. So whenever the High Court feels that it is necessary to wind up the company, it has the powers to wind up the banking company, and it has the powers to appoint an official liquidator. So liquidator 38 of the Banking Regulation Act. Liquidator means nothing but a person appointed. For example, in your Companies Act also there is a provision called as liquidator. Whenever a company gets insolvent, that means if the company is not able to meet its obligation, an insolvency petition is filed. Whenever an insolvency petition is filed, the High Court will order a liquidator. A liquidator is a third party who will ensure that the assets of the company are properly sold out and all the liabilities are met. Even if all the liabilities are not met, the liquidator should ensure that all the secured creditors are met. So that is the purpose of appointing a liquidator. He is a third party who is not related to the company in any manner. He ensures that all the assets of the company are fully sold off and the liabilities are met. For example, if the liabilities is 3 rupees and the asset is only 1.5 rupees, he will do it on a proportional basis. He will proportionately pay out the liabilities of 3 rupees. But always you should remember that there are somebody called as preferential creditors. Preferential creditor means those who have a charge on the asset of the company. For example, if a bank gives a loan to a company, then if the company gets insolvent, then bank is called as a preferential creditor because it has a charge on the asset. So in case of a liquidation, the liquidator will first settle the dues of the banking company by selling off that asset, and only after doing so, all the other unsecured creditors will come into picture. So the role of a liquidator here is much like a judge of a high court. He must ensure that justice is met to all the creditors of the company. Nobody should be said that you cannot get the money. At least some amount of money, like proportionately also they will try to distribute it so that the insolvency of the company is done in a peaceful manner. So same is the case with banking company. Section 38 of your Banking Regulation Act provides for liquidator to be appointed by the central government and attached to the for conducting the winding up proceedings to banking companies. So Reserve Bank also can act as a liquidator. This is an important point. It can act as a question. So although there is a provision for official liquidator, Reserve Bank also applies to the court under section 39 of the Act. The Reserve Bank, State Bank or any other bank notified by the central government can act as a liquidator. So this is very, very important. Reserve Bank, State Bank or any other bank notified by the central government can act as a liquidator. Not only a third party is necessary, even the RBI can act as a liquidator. So this can come as a question in your MCQ. preferential payment. This is what I just explained to you. In the winding up proceedings, the liquidator of the banking company has to make certain preferential payments under section 43A. Preferential payments means those who are more preferred than the other unsecured creditors. Voluntary winding up, apart from the provision for compulsory winding up, section 44 provides for voluntary winding up. That means if a banking company voluntarily wants to wind up its business, it feels that the business is not doing good, then it can voluntarily wind up its business. And even that provision is also there as per section 44 of your Banking Regulation Act. Coming to the last topic of this chapter, it relates to a penalty for offences. We all know that banking companies have to file several applications and submit several written statements, audited accounts to the RBI as well as the central government. So making any false statement in any manner will lead to imposition of penalty and also imprisonment up to 3 years and a fine. This is very, very important. Any kind of false declaration will lead to imposition of penalty as well as punishment by imprisonment for up to 3 years. So section 46 of your Banking Regulation Act contains the provisions of the act related to penalties. Making a willful false statement in a balance sheet or any other document or making a deliberate failure to make any material statement is penalized. In both cases, the penalty is up to 3 years in prison and a fine. So that is the topic related to your inspection, winding up, amalgamation and penalties. It's fairly a simple topic. Well, we'll just have a quick summary of this topic for your easy reference. So the first thing that we learned was with related to your annual accounts and balance sheet. This has to be signed by more than 3 directors. It has to be signed by at least 3 directors in case the company has got more than 3 directors, and if the banking company has got less than 3 directors, then all the directors have to sign, and also the manager or the principal officer has to sign. In case of a foreign banks, the manager or the agent who is present in India has to sign it. And also we have to see that the publication of the accounts and balance sheet is done within 6 months period of the timeline. That means after March 31st, within 6 months they have to publish in the newspaper. And also furnishing of accounts and balance sheet to register, 3 copies have to be submitted to the register as well as to the RBI. Audit and auditors have the same power while doing the audit of a banking company which they enjoy with other normal companies, and this is mentioned under section 227 of your earlier Companies Act 1956. Special audit can also be audited by the Reserve Bank under section 31B, and the report is generally submitted to the RBI as well as the banking company, and the expenses are borne by the banking company. Submission of returns, return of liquid assets within 20 days from the end of each month, monthly return last Friday of previous month, or you can remember as last Friday of every month, return of assets in India on a quarterly basis, return of unclaimed deposits, annual return 30 days from the close of the calendar year, return of cash reserve for non-scheduled banks has to be submitted, as well as by scheduled banks they have to submit a return. And apart from this, we also saw that the accounts and the balance sheet have to be submitted to RBI within 3 months from the end of the calendar year or end of the period of the financial year for the audited period. Okay. Next is something related to inspection and scrutiny. Inspection can be ordered by the central government, and the inspection report is generally submitted to the central government, and the central government has 2 big powers: prohibit the banking company as well as direct the RBI to apply for winding up of the company. Board of Financial Supervision, it generally composes of 6 members, and they have wide powers in order to constitute any executive committee as well as advisory council, and their major powers are listed here. It's majorly 4 powers which they have and which they are necessarily supposed to do. Amalgamation of banks basically pertains to amalgamation of 2 banking companies. Amalgamation by both government and RBI is possible. Winding up of companies, one is natural winding up, that means voluntarily the company can wind up, and the other one is winding up in case of any obligation of not meeting. So if the banking company feels that it is not able to meet its obligations, then it can apply or move to the High Court for winding up, and the official liquidator is appointed, and the liquidator can even be RBI, not only a third person, even RBI or State Bank or any other bank nominated by central government can be your liquidator. Penalties for offences: 3 years imprisonment and a fine is what is prescribed under section 46. So this ends this chapter. We will again meet with the next chapter. Till then, stay safe and take care. Thank you for watching my video.